Welcome students to Chapter 18, Eastern Mediterranean. This video will cover the physical characteristics of the region as well as build on an objective from our previous chapter, which was the vital importance of fresh water. Finally, at the end of this entire chapter, we're going to be able to identify the key teachings of Judaism and also evaluate those teachings from Scripture. Remember, this video is meant to be a brief overview, and we will dive deeper into specific topics in class this week. So what you're looking at is a political map of the region. Most of these countries you have labeled in class in your composition book. Now let's shift over to a physical map of the same region. The countries that we studied along the western coast of the Mediterranean Sea, they showed us plentiful harbors, jagged mountains, and a mild climate. In contrast to that, the eastern part, which is right here, has very few ports, hardly any fresh water, and also a lack of natural resources. In addition to that, we also saw that the primary reason for controversy and power within the Persian Gulf, which was this area over here, was the control of oil. In the new region we're studying of Eastern Mediterranean, the main reason for trouble has been religion, and terrorism has been an accepted method of expression. You have one of the most bitter conflicts in world history right here in this region. When we look at religion in general, we can see that Muslims pretty much dominate and control this area. You can see that only the parts that are colored in gray do not have any significant Muslim influence. In 1948, the United Nations allowed Jews to create an independent state at the very heart of Muslim territory. This region has been in conflict ever since. And in fact, add in the fact that Western countries have tried to enforce peace in this area, and you have a lot of hatred. So students, on your own, I want you to look at Matthew 12, 17 through 21, and how can you apply that Bible verse to what you've heard about this specific area? I want us to look at our first country, and that is Turkey. This country is often referred to as a choke point. You define that word in class. What does it mean? The reason it's called a choke point is because it's at the crossroads between Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. As a result of where this country is located, we can see a lot of movement of goods and people between three giant continents. As we can see in regards to the external geography, it is bordered on three sides by water. Internally, Turkey is about the same size as Texas, maybe slightly larger, with mountains. You labeled the mountains to the north and south of this country. It's also home to the biblical Mount Ararat. And again, I want you to look up in Genesis 8:4 and tell me what's the biblical importance or biblical significance of that particular mountain. Within Turkey, 97% of the people follow a form of Islam, and even with a significant Muslim influence, Turkey in the 1920s adopted a series of reforms that reflected acceptance of the West, Western ideas, Western influence. So for example, one of those is women were finally given the right to vote. Another example was there was a ban on wearing veils and turbans. Another one, there was a ban on polygamy, which is the practice of having many wives. And finally, they also accepted the solar calendar that we use in the West instead of the Muslim lunar calendar. At the very heartbeat of Turkey, you have a city called Istanbul. You all labeled that on your maps as well. Istanbul was formerly known as Constantinople. It is the largest city in the Middle East. Your next country is Cyprus. This island is the third largest in the Mediterranean Sea. The capital is Nicosia, and the country has two mountain ranges that cross from east to west, and then there's a plain in between them. So you can kind of see that on this map here. Those are the mountains that run east and west, and then the plain that runs in the middle where our capital is. Only the mountains see snow, as the rest of the island is very hot, very dry. Only 8% of the land itself is good enough to grow crops, good enough for agriculture. The island relies heavily on tourism. While this may seem great, anytime there's instability in this area, tourism always drops, therefore affecting the economy. Now, why would tourism drop? Why would there be conflict here? Historically, the island of Cyprus has been under rule by many different countries. Here's a list of them: Egypt, the great city of Rome, Greece, France, Italy, Turkey, and Britain. Because it's been under rule by so many people, talk about ethnic diversity. It's no surprise that with all these different ethnicities, you will see a country that is now divided against itself. A clashing of traditions, a clashing of ideas, clashing of religions. Since it gained its independence, the United Nations has gone through great lengths to try to maintain peace on this island. Students, that concludes 18.1 and 18.2 notes.